Before the world even tried to decipher her, Anna Wintour had already changed the rules. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need to explain. She simply observed, selected, and decided. And with every decision, the fashion world rearranged itself around her. Because where others saw clothing, she saw structure. Where others saw glamour, she saw power. And where others saw fleeting trends, she saw strategies capable of shaping an entire generation. Anna didn't dictate fashion out of whim. She organized it as if it were a solar system. Designers as planets, celebrities as satellites, media as orbits, consumers as tides. Everything revolved, and still revolves, around her gaze. She was the one who turned the magazine cover into a cultural weapon. She was the one who transformed the Met Gala into a temple. She was the one who made the celebrity an aesthetic symbol. She was the one who elevated disciplined minimalism into a new code of luxury. She was the one who altered the business, the beauty ideals, the rules, and even the speed at which the world looks at fashion. Many believe Anna Wintour merely runs a magazine. But the truth is something else. She directs the narrative of an entire century. What she approves becomes canon. What she ignores disappears. What she pushes becomes a global trend. And behind those dark sunglasses, the question no one can answer hangs in the air like an elegant secret. Is Anna Wintour the guardian of taste, or the silent engineer who turned fashion into a language of power? This is the story of how one woman didn't just observe the fashion world. She redrew it. She disciplined it. She transformed it until her vision became a universal aesthetic. Fashion lived unestheticized. Impeccable photos, safe beauty, ideas polished until they lost their edge. Everything looked bright, but nothing changed. Until Anna Wintour decided to look in a different way. She didn't seek softness. She didn't seek charm. She sought tension. She sought direction. She sought a truth that made people uncomfortable. Her way of seeing wasn't contemplative. It was surgical. It entered. It cut. It removed what got in the way. And from that emptiness, something new was born. Clearer. Fiercer. For Anna, an image had to have a pulse. A heartbeat capable of moving the entire industry. If it didn't, it was useless. That simple. That brutal. The studios felt it first. Lights too soft. Discarded. Makeup without intention. Erased. Clothes without message. Invisible. She didn't want what's correct. She wanted what was inevitable. Her presence shifted the atmosphere. Words weren't necessary. A single look could dismantle weeks of work. But it could also transform an idea into destiny. That balance between destruction and creation made her indispensable. The industry still breathed old codes, excess, drama, easy seduction. But Anna opened another door, a door leading to an aesthetic that was short, precise, sharp as a sentence. Photographers began to adapt. Less noise, more structure, less emotional makeup, more meaning. Stylists adapted too. They learned that one misplaced garment could betray an entire narrative, that a minimal gesture could dictate the tone of an era. The shift wasn't immediate. It was underground. Silent, but unstoppable. Anna imposed an unwritten rule. If it has no intention, it doesn't exist. If it has no strength, it doesn't matter. If it has no vision, it won't survive. That principle challenged fashion houses, forced them to confront their flaws. Collections made out of obligation vanished. Campaigns, built for quick applause, evaporated without trace. Designers understood the message. Creating wasn't enough. Meaning had to be built. Anna saw before anyone else when an idea had a future. She didn't sense it. She identified it. A different cut, a new proportion, a color that broke the season. She detected the vibration before the explosion. That sensitivity shaped contemporary aesthetics. Luxury stopped screaming. It sharpened. It hardened. It made every line, every texture, every shadow accountable. The result was a global aesthetic that felt more honest. Less noise, more power. Less empty spectacle, more calculated intention. But her greatest impact wasn't what she promoted. It was what she eliminated. The syrupy romanticism. Gone. The editorial without discourse. Gone. Beauty that only decorated. Gone. Chaos disguised as creativity. Dead before birth. Anna purged fashion. She cleaned it. She tightened it. She stretched it. Until only the essential remained. And the essential, under her gaze, was forceful. Images that breathe power. Editorials that think. Collections that uphold an idea larger than themselves. This shift altered the world's aesthetic compass. Consumers who had never considered composition or narrative began to feel the difference. They became demanding, critical, unable to accept the mediocre. Without knowing it, they had adopted the Wintour standard. And when a culture adopts a standard, that standard stops being influence. It becomes infrastructure, foundation, unwritten law. That is what Anna built. Not a fashion, not a style, but a mechanism, a way of seeing that reorganized the entire system from its roots. Today, much of modern aesthetics, discipline, purity, intention, restrained narrative, breathes inside an architecture that carries her signature, not because she imposed it, but because she made it inevitable. Before Anna Wintour, a cover was a window. After Anna, it became a verdict. The industry followed old formulas, soft backgrounds, impeccable dresses, predictable poses. Everything looked correct, but nothing made anyone tremble. Anna arrived to break that comfort. She didn't want approval, she wanted impact. She didn't want neutral beauty. She wanted an image that forced the world to look. Her first rule: a cover is not a summary. It's a strike, a visual strike, a cultural strike, a strike that rewrites what fashion considers possible. And that's how the storm began. She questioned the sacredness of perfect glamour. She asked quietly, but with a force that froze the air, why a cover had to be an untouchable altar. Why couldn't it be a challenge? Why couldn't it be risk? Why couldn't it be a direct provocation to the dominant taste? Others blinked. She moved forward. She decided the image had to breathe movement, even if frozen. She decided the clothing had to speak louder than the pose. She decided the cover had to capture desire, not complacency. And she began to change everything. She introduced aggressive contrasts, unexpected silhouettes, gazes that didn't ask for permission, camera cuts that ignored every classic formula. Sometimes a frame too close, sometimes an angle too daring, but always with one purpose: to break the visual passivity suffocating fashion. Editorial teams panicked, photographers hesitated, models didn't know what to expect. But Anna did. She knew exactly what she was looking for: an image with an idea inside it. Not a pose, not an outfit, an idea. A cover that contained a future. That was the turning point. Covers began to have narrative direction. They were no longer about showing clothes. They defined a cultural tone, a mental season, a collective sensibility. The world felt the shift before understanding it. People stopped flipping pages. They paused. They looked. They examined every detail. They wondered what that strange composition meant. And without realizing it, they were stepping into the aesthetic territory Anna was building. Critics said she took too many risks. She responded with an even bolder cover. Purists defended tradition. She reshaped it with a single image. Executives feared the audience wouldn't understand. The audience understood and followed. something deeper began to happen. Celebrities started to look different. Models transformed under the lens. Designers realized a cover could elevate or bury an entire collection. Brands began to chase the space they once feared. And Vogue stopped being a magazine. It became a compass. What Anna placed on the cover became emotional climate. Mandatory reference. The world's visual temperature. A color she used became a trend. A gesture she chose defined attitude. A framing she approved became global style. Covers no longer influenced. They commanded. And her greatest victory was this. She transformed the idea of a pretty cover into a decisive cover. The shift was so deep that today it's hard to remember a time when a cover was simply a presentation. Now, it is a judgment, an aesthetic sentence, a piece of cultural architecture. And that architecture has a name, Anna Wintour. She didn't seek to make history. She sought to make sense. And in doing so, she reprogrammed the way the world looks at fashion every month, every season, every year. Covers are no longer mirrors. They are direction, affirmation, proclamation. And it all began with a woman who decided an image wasn't meant to please. It was meant to command. Fashion had owners. Models were the queens. Runways were their territory. Magazines confirmed their power. And then Anna Wintour arrived and flipped the board. It wasn't an impulsive gesture. It was a strategy. Cold, precise, impossible to stop. Anna noticed something no one was reading. The world no longer dreamed only of perfect bodies. It dreamed of stories, of faces that carried desire, drama, scandal, aspiration. Faces people already knew, already followed, already loved or criticized. The industry clung to the past. She advanced toward another dimension. One day, she simply decided, celebrities will not be guests. They will be protagonists. They will be the new visual currency of the world. And that's how the revolution began. The resistance was brutal. Purists screamed blasphemy. Editors trembled at the idea of replacing supermodels with actresses. Designers feared losing credibility. Critics announced the death of good taste. Anna did not retreat. She never retreats. Her logic was sharp. Fashion wants influence. Celebrities already have it. Fashion wants narrative. They live inside narrative. Fashion wants an audience. They bring crowds. The equation was perfect. All it needed was someone brave enough to activate it. And Anna did. The first celebrity cover wasn't an experiment. It was a declaration of war, a signal, a rupture with decades of tradition, an invitation to a threat, urging the industry to move. The impact was immediate. Sales rose. Conversation exploded. The cover became a cultural phenomenon, not a collectible object. Hollywood studios understood the message. Fashion was no longer an accessory. It was a massive amplifier. From that moment, everything changed. Red carpets became parallel runways. Celebrity stylists became as influential as creative directors. Designers began competing to dress the most powerful actresses. A single public appearance could change the fate of an entire collection. Fashion stopped living in magazines. It began to live in the global imagination. But Anna's master move went deeper. She didn't use celebrities to elevate magazines. She used magazines to turn celebrities into aesthetic symbols. For her, an actress wasn't enough just by acting. She had to embody a visual narrative. She needed presence, magnetism, interior tension. She had to be capable of carrying a cover as if it were a political declaration. Anna shaped these covers like sculptures. She chose expressions that didn't smile out of obligation, postures that suggested power, not compliance, styling that transformed each woman into a mythic figure. And so, without saying it, she established a new canon. Being famous was no longer enough. You had to be iconic. Models felt the tremor. Some sank, others evolved. They learned to act, to generate narrative, to become public characters beyond the runway. The line between model and star blurred, and that fusion created a new kind of myth, the media supermodels of the 2000s and 2010s. The entire system reorganized. Campaigns demanded celebrities. Covers dictated who mattered. Brands depended on cultural influence as much as creativity. Fashion stopped being a closed club. It became a global power platform. And at the center stood Anna Wintour, drawing lines, selecting faces, rewriting hierarchies. Because what she understood, before anyone else, was this: fashion doesn't live only on the body. It lives in the mind, in the projections of collective desire. And no one awakens massive desire like a celebrity. That's why her move wasn't whim. It was a reconfiguration of imagination, a new form of visual authority, a way of turning pop culture into an extension of fashion. Today it seems obvious, but at the time it was scandal. It was heresy. It was revolution. A revolution that still dictates who enters, who exits, who shines, who disappears. And it all began with a fierce idea. Fashion should not follow icons. It should manufacture them. The Met Gala was an elegant cocktail, polite, proper, predictable, just another night in a calendar overflowing with events, until Anna Wintour took control, and what once was a banquet became an altar of power, of aesthetics, of hierarchy. Anna didn't need to shout to transform the museum's quietest night into the most feared and desired ceremony on the planet. She changed only one thing: intention. The Maitano stopped being a party. It became a message. And when the message changes, everything changes. First, the door. Not everyone entered. Not everyone could dream of entering. Not everyone deserved to be seen. The guest list was no longer social. It was strategic. Every name was a calculated piece on a massive board. Every seat was a vote of confidence, or a punishment disguised as omission. Then, the theme. Once irrelevant, now sacred. Anna turned the idea of the annual theme into an aesthetic mandate, a code guests had to decipher, a visual challenge forcing everyone, designers, celebrities, fashion houses, to take a stance. The Métis was no longer a red carpet. It was a declaration of identity, a public exam, a trial by fire. And what happened on those steps became cultural archive. Anna turned the museum entrance into a stage where value, creativity, and boldness were measured. A bad choice became viral humiliation. A good choice became legend. She installed a new pressure. Being famous wasn't enough. You had to be memorable. You had to embody the year's vision. You had to exist on the level where fashion stops being clothing and transforms into myth. Designers felt the weight. The MIT became their greatest test. More important than a runway, more visible than a campaign, more dangerous than a review. A right appearance could elevate an entire house. A mistake could bury it. And Anna knew it, calculated it, used it as a tool. Under her direction, the MIT became a contemporary liturgy, a ritual where aesthetics are not displayed, they are consecrated. No one dresses well for the Met. They dress to be interpreted, to send signals, to claim symbolic territory. And the world watches, analyzes, judges, consumes. Every year, the internet burns. Debates explode. Comparisons multiply. Who understood the theme? Who dared? Who failed? Who dominated? But behind the noise is her, Anna, drawing the line between the acceptable and the unforgivable, deciding who may climb those stairs with dignity and who will be left dreaming from the outside. The Met Gala became her masterpiece because it combines everything that defines her vision: control, intention, narrative, disciplined spectacle. She doesn't direct just a night. She directs an annual story that defines the global aesthetic sensibility. What happens at the MIT becomes trend. What doesn't happen disappears. What stands out becomes canon. What fails becomes warning. The Met under her reign is a cultural machine, an oracle of luxury, a laboratory where the future of fashion is tested, a theater where those who truly understand aesthetic evolution prove themselves. Anna turned New York's quietest event into the beating heart of the global imagination. Today, no one remembers what it was like before her, not because it was bad, but because it was small, inoffensive, insignificant. Anna made it monumental, feared, worshipped, necessary. And even though the carpet rolls out only once a year, her shadow remains all the time. Because the Met Gala is no longer a gala. It is a religion with a single high priestess. In fashion, talent isn't enough. Creativity isn't enough. Genius sometimes doesn't even matter. There is something more decisive, something more feared, something more final. The gaze of Anna Wintour. A designer can work for years in silence, can fight, insist, dream. But the cruel and brilliant truth of the industry is this: everything can change in an instant, if Anna says yes. Or everything can vanish, if Anna sees nothing. She doesn't look for promises. She looks for inevitables. She creates a fierce filter. Do you have vision? Do you have discipline? Do you have an aesthetic capable of dominating a decade? If the answer is no, you disappear. If the answer is yes, Anna can turn you into a legend. That's how it was for many. But it was never luck, never romantic intuition. It was pure strategy. Anna identifies something few can read: the internal architecture of a brand, the DNA of a designer, the tension that holds a collection together. She doesn't analyze garments, she analyzes minds. If a mind has structure, she propels it. If not, she lets it fall without mercy. Marc Jacobs, Tom Ford, Alexander McQueen, Phoebe Philo, John Galliano. Names that now feel inevitable. But they weren't always. Each of them, at a critical moment, received a silent gesture from Anna. A cover, an editorial, an appearance at the Met Gala, a precise recommendation to a luxury house, a push that seemed small but moved mountains. With a single move, Anna could place a designer before the world. With another move, she could collapse them. But her power was never capricious. It was surgical. She demanded one thing: coherence. If your aesthetic wavered, you were dead. If your collection was noise without direction, you were out of the game. If your vision lacked a backbone, you would be replaced. Anna didn't celebrate chaos disguised as creativity. She celebrated clarity, intention, the ability to sustain a brand as if it were its own universe. And when she detected that strength, she acted. She could take a young designer and turn them into a prophet of a new era. She could transform a dying brand into an aspirational temple. She could anticipate the cultural sensitivity that would arrive 5, 10, 15 years later, and find the perfect creator to embody it. Anna didn't just support designers, she shaped them. She knew when to push them toward risk, when to slow them down, when to expose them, when to protect them. She calibrated their growth as if tuning an instrument. A mediocre show wouldn't make her abandon someone she deemed essential, but a betrayal of their own vision would. That was the only sin she didn't forgive. Fashion houses learned quickly. The perfect hire wasn't a matter of luck. It was a matter of reading Anna, of anticipating whom she saw as the carrier of the next aesthetic cycle. When Anna bet on a designer, the world obeyed. Not out of fear, though fear existed, but because her reading was accurate. She saw ahead with a clarity that bordered on the supernatural. Commerce followed her decisions. Investors followed her signals. Runways followed her rhythm. Celebrities followed her recommendations. The public followed what she legitimized. Anna became a kind of cartographer. She drew the map of who would become the face of fashion each decade, determined what aesthetic would rule the world, chose which sensibilities deserved to enter the mainstream and which should remain as marginal experiments. Under her shadow, designers didn't just grow. They defined themselves. Some became architects of contemporary luxury, others icons of irreverence, others masters of aesthetic purity. All of them, in one way or another, had to pass through her system of validation. Anna didn't create these designers. She revealed them, exposed them, turned on the right light so the world could see them. And in a universe where to be seen is to exist, that was the most powerful gift, or weapon, she could offer. Because in fashion, nothing is more dangerous than a designer without protection, and nothing is more transformative than one blessed by the silent approval of Anna Wintour. Fashion had spent decades repeating the same body, the same silhouette, the same fragility turned into virtue, a domesticated aesthetic, predictable, empty, until Anna Wintour decided that body was no longer enough. She wasn't looking for perfection. She was looking for presence, contained strength, an energy capable of carrying a narrative, not just a dress. Under her gaze, beauty stopped being an ornament. It became an instrument, a tool of impact, a silent declaration of power. Models no longer posed to please. They posed to dominate the frame, to occupy space without apology, to project a kind of confidence fashion had never allowed them before. Anna turned that permission into a rule. She demanded a different attitude, a different muscle tone, a different reading of the face, not sweetness, not vulnerability. Will, a firm gesture, a determined jaw, a posture that spoke louder than words. And the world began to see women differently. Makeup changed. It became more graphic, more structural, more connected to character than to flirtation. Hair stopped being a romantic accessory. It became line, geometry, construction, an extension of the message. Femininity stopped being soft. It became strategic. Under Anna, the feminine acquired edge, acquired purpose, acquired a narrative capacity that disrupted the world's aesthetic landscape. Photographers felt it first. These faces didn't ask to be protected. They asked to be amplified. They demanded tighter, bolder, more frontal frames. Fashion houses understood quickly. They could no longer sell clothes on women who looked like shadows. They needed figures who embodied presence, who held the message without fading. And so a new canon emerged. The woman who does not wait for approval. The woman who does not beg for elegance. The woman who does not settle for the background. Anna installed this idea with a certainty that disarmed the entire industry. She knew a body speaks before a collection does, that the visual weight of a face can define the tone of a season, that the way someone walks can turn a runway into a manifesto. And that changed everything. Campaigns started showing women with sharpened gazes, not submissive, not compliant, sovereign. Runways became more narrative, more synchronized with inner energy than with empty theatrics. Editorials began exploring more complex emotional states, contained rage, absolute security, aesthetic autonomy. Beauty stopped being passive. It became interpretation. And in the midst of this reconstruction, Anna pushed something crucial, a diversity of temperaments. She wasn't looking for a single body. She was looking for an attitude, a vibration, a force that could adapt to many forms, but never to superficial fragility. The message was clear. Fashion needs women who exist fully, not figures who fade on the page. That principle resonated with the public. People began to demand a different representation. They wanted realism. They wanted power. They wanted women with symbolic density. Without saying it outright, Anna guided this transition. She didn't shout, "Change." She showed it. Every cover was a sentence, every editorial a visual theory, every chosen model a tool to rewrite the cultural imagination. Her vision of the female body didn't try to soften it. It sought to dignify it, to turn it into architecture, into pillar, into non-negotiable territory. Stylists adapted their language. Clothing stopped decorating. It began to armor, to strengthen, to emphasize the construction of the character. Readers didn't just consume fashion, they consumed attitude. They consumed the promise of a woman who no longer asks for space, but takes it. And when that reading of beauty became the norm, an entire cycle in fashion died. The cycle of the weak woman, the decorative muse, the obligatory fragility. And another cycle was born, a stronger one, clearer, more faithful to the real power of contemporary women, a cycle carrying the sharp, cold, unmistakable seal of Anna Wintour. Fashion had always sold dreams, but Anna Wintour did something far more dangerous. She turned the dream into a system, into an economy, into machinery. Before her, the business was chaotic, fragmented, impulsive, dependent on instincts, whims, improvised bets. Designers created, magazines displayed, the public chose. Anna erased that old structure and built another, more precise, colder, more efficient. A structure where desire wasn't chance, it was engineering. The first thing she did was radical. She synchronized the world. Brands, celebrities, photographers, stylists, runways, media, all aligned in the same editorial direction. A global alignment, a silent choreography, a circuit where every image drove sales, every cover created demand, every trend had economic intention. Chaos died. A system was born. Advertising campaigns began breathing the same pulse as editorial pages. Designers launched collections knowing the tone of the season had already been set by the narrative Anna constructed months earlier. Brands depended on that reading, on that invisible map only she seemed to understand completely. Under her vision, luxury stopped being contemplative. It became strategic. Every garment became a message, every launch an event, every detail a positioning tool. Anna transformed fashion weeks into an open-air marketplace, a market where not only clothes were exchanged, but future, status, cultural importance. Buyers attended shows not to see outfits, but to read directions, to interpret signals, to anticipate which brands would dominate the cycle. And those signals always came from the same place, the central narrative Anna had decided. She didn't tell people what to buy, she decided what mattered. And in economics, what matters is what sells. Luxury houses understood quickly. Without her approval, a campaign could fall silent. Without her push, a collection could fade unnoticed. Without her presence, a designer could stall. Anna didn't manipulate numbers. She manipulated perceptions. And perceptions move more money than any inventory. The most brilliant part was that she never sold anything directly. She didn't need to. Her job wasn't to be a merchant. It was to be an architect of desire. And desire, when designed well, controls markets. She reconfigured the relationship between fashion and celebrity, between brand and audience, between narrative and consumption. Storytelling stopped being a compliment. It became currency. A collection without a story couldn't compete. A campaign without emotional angle couldn't survive. A designer without clear identity couldn't enter the game. Anna turned coherence into capital, aesthetics into business strategy, pop culture into economic engine. Under her influence, the market started behaving like an ecosystem. What happened on a cover activated what happened in a store. What happened on a red carpet reinforced what occurred on a runway. What exploded online boosted what sold in boutiques. A perfect cycle. Closed. Controlled. And even if no one said it, everyone knew who directed that cycle. Brands adapted their calendars. Photographers adapted their languages. Magazines adapted their priorities. Designers adapted their collections. Anna didn't force anyone. The industry simply followed her reading because her reading always predicted the market with brutal accuracy. What she blessed became profitable. What she ignored became irrelevant. What she rejected became financial warning. That power, cold and absolute, transformed fashion into a globalized business, an economy of desire, an invisible architecture where every piece has its function, its weight, its impact. And at the center of the mechanism, always, is her gaze. Because Anna didn't just direct Vogue, she directed the flow of money. She directed consumer behavior. She directed the rhythm of an entire industry. She took something fragile, scattered, impulsive, and turned it into a disciplined empire. An empire built not with shouts, but with silent decisions that move millions. Fashion had spent years drowning in excess, endless ruffles, shouting prints, uncontrolled shine. Everything wanted attention. Everything competed in volume. Everything was too much. Anna Wintour saw that noise and decided to shut it down. Not with softness, with precision, with an aesthetic cleanliness that cut the visual saturation of an entire era at the root. She understood something the industry had forgotten. True luxury is not displayed. It is implied. It breathes. It is recognized by discipline, not by extravagance. Anna took that principle and turned it into a weapon, a silent weapon, a relentless weapon. Her aesthetic vision began to operate like a purification. Less ornament, more structure. Less color without purpose, more lines that assert. Less noise, more intention. And thus a new kind of luxury was born. A cold luxury. Sharp, controlled. A luxury that didn't need to shout to impose itself. Anna didn't reject ornamentation out of whim. She rejected it because weak ornamentation is a lie, because excess hides the lack of an idea, and she preferred a hard truth over a shiny lie. Minimalism under her lens wasn't simple, it was exact. Every edge had weight, every texture had history, every combination had logic, every shadow was calculated. It was an aesthetic built with the same rigor used to construct a building. Stone over stone, line over line, decision over decision. Designers felt it immediately. It was no longer enough to create pretty clothes. They had to create honest clothes. Clothes with clear narrative. Clothes that felt inevitable. Anna forced the industry to sharpen itself, to stop hiding behind embellishment, to confront emptiness, to sustain purity. And what seemed simple was the hardest thing to achieve. Because aesthetic purity demands courage. Letting go, renouncing, cutting, choosing. Most couldn't do it. Anna could. She turned editing into virtue, sobriety into language, coherence into a form of luxury. Fashion houses began following that discipline, quietly, without admitting it, but following. Runways became cleaner, stronger, more focused. A garment no longer needed spectacle, it needed intention. Campaigns abandoned visual baroque. Models began appearing in stricter, sharper, more geometric compositions. Photography recovered the force of silence, the force of a well-placed shadow, the force of a posture that defines the entire atmosphere. The audience felt it. Disciplined minimalism began infiltrating the popular imagination, into closets, into streets, into social media, into luxury references. What once seemed simple now seemed smart. What once seemed empty now seemed deep. What once seemed little now seemed precise. And although no one said it directly, everyone knew where the shift came from. Anna had rewritten the DNA of contemporary luxury. She installed a new code. Good taste is not shown. It is upheld. Luxury is not displayed. It is affirmed. The world adopted this code without resistance, because it worked. Because it made everything look stronger, more serious, more modern, more aligned with the global sensibility Anna herself helped create. Today, speaking of silent luxury seems like a recent trend, but Anna anticipated it decades ago. She planted the idea when no one was watching, strengthened it with clean covers, reinforced it with editorials free of unnecessary decoration, consolidated it with aesthetic decisions that changed global taste. And now that taste is culture, is norm, is system. The world learned to read luxury in silence, in perfect cuts, in sharp neutrality, in tense calm, in that contained beauty that doesn't seek approval, only respect. A beauty that carries an unmistakable seal, the disciplined pulse of Anna Wintour. The arrival of the internet promised only one thing: destruction. Destruction of print, destruction of tradition, destruction of everything that seemed old, slow, static. And for many, Vogue was exactly that. But not for Anna Wintour. She didn't see a threat. She saw territory. She saw a new field where she could expand her power. She saw an opportunity to rewrite the rules once again. The industry trembled. Sales dropped. Advertisers migrated. Readers vanished. Critics proclaimed the end of magazines. Anna didn't blink. While everyone talked about crisis, she moved in silence, analyzing the new ecosystem like someone studying an enemy that might become an ally. Her first decision was brutal. Don't compete with speed. Use it. The digital world devours images. She produces images that rule. The digital world runs on algorithms. She understands how to dictate desire. The digital world rewards the instantaneous. She turns the instantaneous into narrative. Traditional media tried to imitate social networks. Anna did the opposite. She forced social networks to follow her aesthetic. She started with the obvious: video. While most saw video as content, Anna saw it as a platform of legitimization. Every interview, every backstage moment, every conversation, a way to expand her visual empire beyond the page. Then came YouTube, and Vogue exploded. Not in small numbers, in millions, in global conversations, in entire fandoms. She knew that if she wanted to dominate the internet, she had to turn Vogue into a character with a voice, with tone, with rhythm, and she did. But her most dangerous move was another: taming the influencers. To fashion, influencers were natural enemies. Too fast, too loud, too free. Anna turned them into pieces, not rivals, useful pieces inside her architecture. She invited them, controlled them, shaped them, and when necessary, ignored them without mercy. She didn't follow digital trends. She selected which ones deserved to exist. And suddenly, something unthinkable happened. Prestige and virality stopped fighting. They fused. The MET became a global phenomenon thanks to the internet. Covers became viral events. Supermodels returned through digital nostalgia. Designers became stars through backstage clips. Vogue became omnipresent. Anna had turned speed into an ally. And more than that, she turned the internet into the global mirror of her aesthetic. But the ultimate test arrived when social media began devouring reputations. Any public figure could fall in seconds. Any image could be destroyed by a comment. Any power could evaporate with a scandal. Except hers. Anna didn't dissolve. She didn't lose control. She didn't surrender territory. Her figure, cold, calculated, unreadable, became even more iconic. In a universe where everyone speaks too much, she kept using silence. And silence, in the digital age, is stronger than any speech. While online personalities burned one after another, Anna remained intact. An enigma, a shadow, a living brand. And with that shadow, she controlled the rhythm of digital conversation. She understood something no magazine grasped in time. The internet doesn't destroy power. It destroys what is weak, what is scattered, what is inconsistent. But what is solid, truly solid, the internet turns into cult. And Anna Wintour is solid as marble. Vogue didn't die in the digital era. It multiplied. It internationalized. It became a constellation of platforms, a factory of content feeding the entire world. But always with a center, always with a pulse, always with a gaze. Hers, Anna didn't survive the digital age. She conquered it, redesigned it, used it as a lens to amplify her aesthetic vision, as a silent megaphone to impose her reading of the world, as territory where her dominance became so absolute that even platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, replicate the aesthetic she created decades earlier. The digital era didn't weaken her, it crowned her. Anna Wintour's legacy is not in an archive, it's not in a biography, it's not in a museum, it's in the air, in the way the world looks, desires, interprets, and consumes fashion. Her influence is not past, it is present, constant, unalterable. Because Anna didn't just leave a mark, she designed a system. And a system doesn't die, it replicates. Today, even those who never read Vogue still breathe under the aesthetic she imposed, without knowing it, without questioning it, without escape. Brands speak the language she established. Designers create under the pressure she normalized. Celebrities dress for the cameras she taught the world to control. Covers follow the rhythm she installed. Social networks viralize codes born from her vision. Nothing moves in fashion without passing, directly or indirectly, through the architecture Anna built. Her legacy has multiple layers, each deeper than the last. First, she changed global taste. She refined it, hardened it, made it more demanding. She made the world demand intention, coherence, visual weight. She made audiences, without training, sense when an image had soul and when it had nothing. That shift is not minor. It is cultural, massive, irreversible. Second, she rewrote the concept of influence. Before, fashion influenced through proximity, through prestige, through exclusivity. Anna turned it into a transversal phenomenon, into entertainment, into global conversation, into an emotional engine. Thanks to her, fashion stopped being niche, stopped being pure elite, became universal narrative, accessible and aspirational at the same time. Third, she installed the idea of fashion as a language, not as adornment, not as empty luxury, as code, as a system of signs revealing who you are, what you represent, what you choose to say without speaking. That semiotic reading became norm, not expert theory. Fourth, she transformed women into the central figure of the aesthetic imagination, not as muse, not as object, as protagonist. Under Anna, the feminine stopped being decoration and became structure. Pillar, center. Representation changed forever. Fifth, she rebuilt power. Fashion, under her hand, stopped being personal taste. It became politics, economy, symbolic diplomacy, a territory where hierarchies are negotiated and invisible alliances are sealed. Her legacy is not made of clothes. It is made of decisions that move money, careers, cultural cycles. Sixth, she installed discipline as a form of beauty. In a world obsessed with excess, Anna taught that cutting is creating. that purification is elevation, that elegance is born from control, not accumulation. That discipline became global aesthetic. 7th, she turned fashion into permanent conversation. It is no longer seasonal. It no longer depends on quarterly collections. It is continuous flow, infinite dialogue, a sustained rhythm between runway, cover, red carpet, and social media. She turned fashion time into real time. 8th, Anna became a myth not through mystery, but through consistency, through the brutal coherence between vision, aesthetics, power, and result. Her haircut, her sunglasses, her posture, everything became icon. Everything communicates, everything asserts. Even when she says little, her silence dictates what entire industries try to express. 9th, she defined the standard of the 21st century. Precision, clarity, intention, visual power, austerity loaded with meaning. These elements dominate today's advertising, art house cinema, editorial design, commercial photography, digital aesthetics. The world imitates a style she planted years ago. 10th, her legacy lives because it is integrated. You cannot remove it from contemporary fashion without everything collapsing. She was not an editor. She was a cultural architect, an engineer of desire, a strategist of image, a woman who professionalized emotion and turned aesthetics into infrastructure. That is why her influence is not memory. It is atmosphere, not history. System. And as long as that system exists, Anna Wintour will continue dictating the aesthetic pulse of the world, even when she's no longer in the room, even when she's not on camera, even when the world believes it can move on without her. Spoiler: it can't. The story of Anna Wintour is not the story of an editor. It is the story of a system she designed with surgical precision, fed with discipline, and defended with a coldness few dare to imitate. She didn't seek to please. She sought to define. She didn't seek to be loved. She sought to be necessary. She didn't seek fame. She sought structure. And she obtained it. Anna turned fashion into a language with grammar, hierarchy, weight, memory, a language spoken even when no one names it. Her power was not born from noise, but from control, from the eye, from silence. A silence that cuts harder than any speech. A silence that can elevate a career or extinguish it without warning. Fashion today is not a sum of trends. It is a network. And that network uses the codes she wrote. Covers follow her rhythm. Celebrities follow her rules. Designers follow her expectations. Brands follow her lines. Audiences follow her criteria without knowing it. That is not influence. That is cultural architecture. And Anna became an architect not through blind ambition, but through unbreakable vision. She understood before anyone else that fashion was not superficial. It was politics of the body, economy of desire, symbolic narrative, a way of ordering the world. The question was never whether Anna was strong. The question was whether anyone could match her. So far, no one. Because she didn't just change the way we see clothes. She changed the way we understand beauty. She changed the weight of an image. She changed the role of women in aesthetics. She changed the relationship between culture and power. She changed the speed of global desire. Anna Wintour didn't write an era. She is the era. Her impact is not measured in covers. It is measured in mentality, in visual habits, in aesthetic impulses we now take for granted without remembering who created them. She didn't ask permission to change fashion, and she didn't ask permission to change the world that orbits around it. The real question now is not how Anna came to power. The real question is, what will happen the day her gaze no longer orders fashion? Who will fill the void? Who will sustain the tension, the precision, the discipline that she imposed without ever weakening. The future doesn't know. The industry doesn't either. But for now, one thing is undeniable. As long as images exist, as long as desires exist, as long as fashion remains a field where identity and power collide, the echo of Anna Wintour will continue dictating direction. She was not a passenger of time. She was the metronome, the compass, the pulse. The woman who not only changed the history of global fashion, the woman who decided how the world should look at it.